Okay, as long as we're covering the different containers, we might as well talk about sequence containers. Sequence containers are actually pretty cool, and they're new to SIS. We didn't have them in DTS 2000, and you know, they solve a really big problem in DTS 2000. And actually, a couple things solve this problem, but sequencing certainly helps. The problem is how to perform large chunks of actions at once and make sure that they stay in flow, right? Or make sure that you have one large chunk that finishes and then another large chunk that finishes, right? So if I drag this thing on here, and let's say I can just put this guy inside of here, right there. Okay, now that whole thing will be run as a sequence, okay? So this entire thing will finish before, let's say, before this is run. Or these two will run in tandem right now. But if I highlight this guy right here, put that right there, then okay, so this entire sequence of events will happen before this guy goes out, okay? So right here we've got our loop container, right? So this loop will be looped through as many times as it's going to loop, and it'll do everything it's going to do before the email gets sent. Now, what that really means is that you have a lot finer control over your package, okay? So let's say, for instance, that I don't want to fail the entire package because one single section fails, right? Let's say, and this is going to be a contrived package, but, you know, give me a break here. So let's say that I've got another sequence and yet another sequence. Okay, so I've got three sequences. There's that 3 sequence I. Three sequences here, and these two are chained together, and this one's going to run autonomously, and so is this one. So these are going to be two separate processes, right? So, and they're going to run at the same time. This guy and this guy are going to run on the same time, and they're going to do their thing in their own time. Now, had I attached, you know, an arrow to this guy down here or an arrow to this guy down here, then of course there would be, you know, more than one thing happening at a time. See, now if I attach that to that, now this guy's going to run first, and then these two guys are going to run at the same time. These two guys, okay? And there can be anything inside of here. There can be 100 objects inside of here, or there could be one, right? Okay, so with that in mind, both of these workflows are gonna go at the same time. But let's say that if this one fails, I don't want it to touch this one. I don't want this one to have to fail, and I sure as hell don't want the package to have to fail. Okay, all I want to do is to have something happen. Maybe I could even correct it and start again, right? So right now I'm going to send an email when it fails. Okay, I got a phone call, and I've been gone for like 40 minutes, and I have no idea where I was. But let's see here. I think I was talking about failing this parent. Yeah, that's what I was about to do. So, you know, I'm going to have to get warmed up here for a second. I realize that that it's, you know, it's been the time span of like a quarter of a second for y'all, but it's been like almost an hour for me. So I'm going to have to get revved back up here a little bit. So, okay, you got the sequence container. We've talked about how these guys are gonna order themselves, and I've got the send mail task right here, right? That's gonna happen when this guy finishes. Now, you know, one of the advantages to something like this is if I want to fail this package and if I want to be able to have the sequence container right here fail without failing the package. So I've got this entire thing here, right? So if this guy fails, I can see here this property right here on the sequence container, fail parent on failure is false, right? So I can tell it don't fail the entire package if just this one little section fails, and then I can come do something about it if I need to, right? And of course I can send that email only if it fails. right? So I can give that a red line instead of a green or a blue line, and then that's great. And what's really cool also is any one of these guys, if this guy fails, I can say, where are you? Fail parent on failure, or fail package on failure, right? So you've got these guys right there too. So a sequence container is really nothing more than what it sounds like. Sequence. It makes sure that things go in the order that you want them to. Now you can do some pretty fancy finagling here with if you add functions to these guys right here. So if you add some constraints here, some expressions, you can sorry about that. If you add some expressions here, you can add some pretty fancy functionality here that mimics the stuff that we used to have in SQL 2000, where you could go into the scripting task and play with the DOM and turn certain things on and off, right? So you can choose that it does one thing or another based off of this stuff. But anyway, that's the basics of sequences. I've kind of lost my flow now because of that phone call, so I hope this was a decent intro for you. At least it'll tell you what sequences are about, and maybe we'll do some fancier stuff later.